Alright guys, Tush coming at you from the Tush Mahal. A little bit different project today. In the garage we've got my 2002 BMW R1150RT that we're going to do some work on. Just a little bit of background on this bike. I purchased this back in last November, now May, and when I purchased the bike I just pretty much brought it home and put it away, because obviously you can't ride a bike in Canada in November, at least where I am. So it just basically went into storage as soon as I got it, with the intention that when spring came around I would get this bike up to snuff and get it on the road. Well, obviously with this pandemic, things have been thrown into a little bit of disarray as far as businesses being open and getting parts, etc. And even getting the bike registered is going to be a bit of a challenge. But we decided to go ahead and start working on this project, and have ordered some parts a couple weeks ago from Beemer Boneyard in the US, and they are winging their way to me. I should be receiving those probably by tomorrow, so I thought I would start today working on this bike and getting it ready for the arrival of my parts. So let me say first off that I am definitely not anywhere near being qualified as a motorcycle mechanic. My expertise, if you can call it that, is in old British sports cars. So bikes are a little bit new to me, and this bike is probably more technologically, well, not probably, it is more technologically advanced than any of my little Triumphs are. This having ABS on it, for example, is a new bit of territory for me to cover. But regardless of that, I am not a qualified motorcycle mechanic, but I'm going to do my best to muddle through this, and I'll take you along the way as I get into doing some service on this bike. So the good thing is that over the winter I've been able to do quite a bit of reading on various forums and watch quite a few videos on just general tips and tricks on working on these bikes. And I've purchased the requisite manuals. I've got the Climber manual here. I've got the Haynes manual here. I've got the BMW manual here. So pretty much got as many manuals as I require to work on this bike. Plus I have a lot of information on little snippets that have been grabbed from the internet. For example, this is a good guide on doing the ABS bleed. So I've got a bunch of work to read through, or I've actually done quite a bit of research on what to do as far as working on this bike, as far as the items that I'm going to be working on. And here is the list that I'll be going through in this little video series of mine. I'm not sure if I'll break it into parts or not. It depends on how long this video ends up being, but there are certain things you need to do in order to get this bike back to, like I said, a level of like a ground zero to start from. And there are certain things I have no idea whether they've been done or not, because I didn't get a lot of service records with this bike. I've got very generic service records with no dates on them. You know, oil changes, blah blah blah, tranny oil done, rear main done, engine oil done, but there's no dates. Poly V-belt done, plugs need done. So anyway, so I don't have very much information as far as maintenance is concerned on this bike, as far as the history is concerned. So we're going to start from scratch, and we'll work down our list that we have here. So we're going to do a fuel pump filter and new lines which are inside the tank. We are going to do an engine oil and filter change. We are going to do a trans oil change. We are going to do a final drive oil change. New air filter, new plugs. We're going to set the valves. We're going to do, or at least inspect the V-belt. I'm not sure, again, it mentions the V-belt for the alternator in my service, but no date. So we're going to do the V-belt, or at least inspect it. We have our leaking, our weeping brake line at the rear, so I've got a new stainless steel line to put on that. Eventually we're going to do stainless steel lines for the entire bike, but I want to make sure I can get this up and running, and right now the bike has an ABS fault. I'm thinking it's attributed to this brake line failure, so we've bought this line to swap it out, make sure we can get rid of the ABS failure light before we move forward and install a brand new couple $100 stainless steel brake line kit. Included in this brake line, we're going to be doing an ABS, a full ABS service, so a flush of the ABS circuits, a full brake bleed, front and rear. We have a driving or fog light out on the front, so we've got new lights on their way to us that we're going to swap out. We're going to do a general lubrication on the entire bike according to the maintenance manual. We're going to do a panel fix. These little triangular panels here at the rear of the bike are notorious for breaking off their studs, and could be for me. These little panels here generally break off their studs and need to be repaired, so I'm pretty sure both of mine are broken off, so we'll have to do a repair on those at some point and get creative. I've read a couple of articles on that as well. And then just a general cleaning of the entire bike, cleaning, waxing. There's a logo on the left hand side of the bike here, it's actually on the right hand side of the bike, that's missing the factory logo. I believe this this panel has been replaced because it is missing that logo. Here it is on this side, and you can see it's missing that sticker. I do have a replacement in the house. I actually even have a replacement mirror for this side, as it's got a bit of a scratch in it. So so there's a few other things I need to do as far as just a general cleaning of this bike, cleaning, waxing. Once I get the fairing panels off, or the Tupperware as they call it, we'll probably clean what we can inside, internally on the bike as well, because I'm sure that's going to need a bit of maintenance as well. While we have those panels off, we may as well go ahead and do that. So anyway, that's it for now, guys. We'll first step for me then will be to get the seats off and those little rear triangular panels, and then the plastic Tupperware bits will come off as well. I'll try to take you along, and again, this is my first time, so you'll be learning as I do, and hopefully this will be able to help somebody along the line who's got a new to them RT1150, and I think a lot of this is applicable to the RT1100 as well. I'm not exactly sure how much of it's going to be applicable, but anyway, it might help somebody down the line if I take a video document of this. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the seats. This is an aftermarket seat. I think it's made by Sargent, but regardless, all of the seats generally come off the same way as far as my understanding. If you've not read any manuals or you're not familiar with this bike, you may have difficulty getting this off as you need the actual key to get these seats off. And there is a kind of a hidden key location up here where you need to insert the key, and I don't think I can do this one-handed, but twist it and then lift the rear seat off, and then the front seat comes off. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that now. Okay, so turn the key, lift the rear seat off, and then the front seat comes off. There you go, so that's pretty straightforward. This is also, there's a, you can probably see it here, there's also a seat height adjustment, but we're not going to get into that. I need the seat on the lowest setting, so I'm not going to bother with adjusting the height of the seat, but there is a height adjustment if you require one. Okay, and just a quick look of the under seat compartment. Mine's been wired up for a quick connect for a battery tender. Here is the, if you can see that at all, it's a little dark in there. There's the factory toolkit in there, and a little bit of storage space. So grab the factory toolkit out of there. I think we're going to need the spark plug tool out of there, so we'll have that handy when we need it. Alright guys, just a quick shot of the factory toolkit, and it's obvious that I'm missing a few pieces. I'm missing a screwdriver, it looks like, and a couple of wrenches at the very least. Actually, it looks like there's even a compartment here for some spare fuses, which are not in here as well, so I'll have to get some of those. And some replacement tools to go in here. I also don't see the spark plug puller tool, which I believe is supposed to be included in here, so anyway, we'll make do with what we got. Alright, we're going to remove these little triangular pieces as a start. And my understanding is it's just a twist and pull. So just this little pull, twist that, pull it, and you should be able to pull it away. And again, as you can see here, this is supposed to actually have a lug on it, and it does not. So this is broken off. I have read of a fix, and we'll attempt to do that before we reassemble this bike. I'm sure it will be the same on the other side as well. So on the left hand side panel, that is broken off as well, no surprise. This panel is a little more difficult to get off, as you need to sort of lift this is the engine bike lifting handle to put it up on its center stand, and that needs to be lifted slightly to be able to get that panel off. These are power outlets for heated gear or to charge the bike, etc. So those are good to see. I don't have any plug-in ports that will actually work with those, so I'll need to order those if I want to use the charger or any heated gear, etc., or GPS phone charging capabilities if I want to use those ports. So anyway, another investment to make. And now comes to the scary part, removing the mirrors, and it's supposed to just take a little bit of force, palm of your hand, just to knock these forward off of the 3 locating pins. So never been done before by me, so again, should be a little interesting. So supported at the back of the mirror, palm of the hand. Here we go. That wasn't too bad. Just to disconnect the bulb. Here we go. And we'll do the same on the other side. Alright, same procedure on the left-hand side of the bike. There you go. So it's my understanding that it's not a bad idea to actually put a safety wire. I think they sell safety wires, or you can create a safety wire to keep these mirrors on. In the event that you knock it, maybe pulling out of the garage, or maybe you hit a large bump and your pins are not in such great a shape, at least it'll keep your mirror from falling completely off the bike and smashing on the ground. So we might actually invest in a set of those leads just to use as a safety for the mirrors. Alright, we're going to start taking the Tupperware off the right hand side of the bike first, and we've got our torque screwdriver ready, and we could be using an electric impact for this, but I'm just going to do this by hand as my first time doing this. I want to just take it slow and make notes of locations and sizing of fasteners. I believe some of these might be short and some might be a little bit longer, so we want to make sure that we record those. There are some obvious locations for these fasteners, and there are some not so obvious locations, so I'll take a little video when I get to the areas where they're not so obvious so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, this is the first of the not so obvious locations, just here below the mirror. So we've removed this screw. We're just about to drop down inside the underneath of the fairing, just in front of the cylinder head. There's a couple of fasteners there, and we'll investigate while we're down there further. Alright, so there's the cylinder head, so we have an orientation where we're looking at, and this is looking up towards the top of the bike, and it looks like there are 2 locations here for fasteners that have nothing in them, so I'm not sure if those were just not replaced when they put this new fairing side on. And there's 2 locations here that actually have fasteners in them, so we're going to remove those fasteners. And we'll just take note of those are missing. Fortunately, I have some backup screws that I can use to reinstall those. So as mentioned, I am trying to make a reference of what I'm taking out of the bike as far as locations are concerned, but I don't really know if this is accurate or not, but I am recording what I'm taking out, and in some cases there are fasteners that are missing entirely. So the longer fasteners here are from these locations here, and I'm missing the one from down here, so that wasn't there. The other 3, there are 2 that are shorter than the first 2 that I took out, and then one that's even shorter than that, and they came out of the tank up here. So I'm not sure on the actual length. That's probably supposed to be this length, all 3 of them. This one is the length of the bolt that I took out from the below the mirror location, and then we've got 2 different sides back to a long and short from the screws that I took out by the cylinder head, and again mentioned that there were 2 missing on the upper, I believe. So that's just for reference what I'm pulling out. We'll keep going. Okay, another not so obvious location is here in front of, I believe this is the oil cooler ducting, and you can probably see, hopefully, there's one just right there. So we'll see if we can get a screwdriver in there and remove that. I believe that may be the last screw on this side, but we'll not try to muscle it off. If it falls off, we'll keep a hand on it and see if we can remove it. If not, if it doesn't come off easily, then obviously we'll go back and check to make sure we've removed all the fasteners that we need to remove so we don't break anything. So let me remove this one and we'll go from there. And for reference, the last screw we took out is also a short one up by the oil cooler and the nose of the bike. Okay, so we'll set up the tripod and see if we can lift this panel off carefully. Alright, here we go, first attempt. Missed one. Right here at the rear of the tank, there's one that I missed that's quite obvious. So we'll remove that and give it another shot. Okay, take two. That was also a short screw, by the way. I'm going to check to see if there's one down in the belly. And it's possible. It's possible maybe these are also capturing that, so let me check those two as well. I thought those were just for the belly pan, but let me remove those. Alright, those two screws are out of the lower, I'm going to call it a belly pan. They're also short. Actually, one is short, one is about a medium length. Again, I'm not sure if that's right. Give this another shot. There we go. All right, success. So here are the two screw locations that I had missed undoing on the bottom. So those were there. Again, there's the two here that I'm not sure whether actually should be there. Two there. Obviously these along the bottom. This one is a fixed screw. It's actually got a little rubber or a little plastic connector that's a twist and lock. Then the ones on the tank, as I'd showed you, to one at the rear here that I'd missed. Three along the top. Again, the one by the mirror. And then we've got the one on the inside up in here that was by the oil cooler. And that's it. So the right hand side fairing is off. And we'll investigate this bike once we get the left hand side off. So we'll repeat the process for the left-hand side of the bike, and I'll let you know if there are any issues that I encounter along the way. Straight away, this little push connector, the screw is stripped, so I can't actually turn that, so I'll probably have to get a little pair of vice grips or something to be able to turn that. Let me see if I can show that to you what I'm talking about. So it's got a little push pin connector here, and I'm unable to actually turn that, so as that's stripped out, so what we'll do is we'll just grab that with a pair of pliers or a pair of vice grips or a pair of needle nose, and we'll just give that a turn to release this area back here. Alright, so It wasn't long until we ran into a bit of a problem, was it? Okay, we've got that one out, so let's see how we do on this side. Just going to take a look in here and see if there's any fasteners that need to be undone in the actual cubby box. Let me get my key out here. Don't see anything. All right. Second panel off. All right, let me take you off the tripod and I'll give you a little walk around so you can see what it looks like with the panels off. All right, there's a quick walk around of the left-hand side. See a little duct tape, which is never a good thing. Duct tape and zip ties. So we'll unwrap that and see what they were trying to cover up there. I noticed it's got an LED light here on this side and a traditional light on the other side, so probably have to upgrade to LEDs on both sides. So that'll be another thing I need to order. A little dirty. More duct tape. Just needs a good cleaning in here. A little bit of corrosion. Don't see anything that really scares me so far. Right hand side of the bike. Again, could use a good cleaning, and it will get a good cleaning. But other than that, doesn't look too bad. Gas tank is going to come off. So we need to get to the ABS pump. I also need to change the filter in here as well. And the lines inside the tank degrade, so we'll redo those. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to something else. Alright, I'm going to want to take this tank topper off, so I'm assuming that this retaining ring has to be removed, so we're going to remove that. I don't see any other fasteners here that are keeping that down to the top of the tank. So we'll go ahead and remove that retaining ring and see if we can lift that off. Alright, the tank top is off, and it is just a matter of releasing those screws. Those Torx are a little bit larger than the fairing screws, so you have to move up a bit size. So easy enough to get off. This gas stinks. It's old gas. So I'm probably going to stuff a rag in there to keep the vapors from coming out of the tank. So let's move on to something else. Let's maybe move to removing this cubby box on the left hand side of the bike. So it looks like some more Torx screws, and we should be able to lift that box away. Normally this would have a radio, CD player, tape deck, etc. in here. I see it's got another wire. I'm not sure what this was used to plug in, but It's nothing probably that I'm going to be using, so we may remove that, but we'll see. So this little cubby looks to be held on by a combination of Torx screws and hex heads. So we'll have to get some hex wrenches out and remove this cubby. I think those are the only 3 fasteners I can see, but there may be some internally that I need to investigate. So let me check that out. Well, I doubt this is correct, but there's actually a couple little nuts and set screws on the inside on both sides. One of them had actually fallen out on this side, and there was just a hole there, and I actually found the set screw in the duct tape, and then there's this screw back here, and you can see that sort of looks kind of black, almost like it's rubberized. I'm pretty sure I probably have to remove that as well. Anyway, we'll get the wrenches out and we'll get that out as well. Okay, I found another hidden screw just at the back here of the box. I think that's the only one that's left to be undone, so you'll definitely miss that one if you're not looking for it. So you'll find it when you try to get the box off. Anyway, we'll come back and I'll give you an overview of what we did to get this box off and the fasteners that were attached to it. Alright guys, we've got the assembly off, and I thought I'd just stick it back on the bike and show you how we got it off. So there are 3 fasteners here which detach the top of this box. I'm not sure whether you actually need to take the top off to get this box off, but I did anyway. Those were attached with these little screws and nuts. There are 3 of them, one here and one on each side. So then that just lifts off the top of the box like that. Okay. Then there's that little rubberized screw that I told you about on the back here that you need to remove. There's that hidden one back here. There's the hex nuts, and the hex is actually attached to this bracket on the speedo cable. You can see the hex nut here. That attaches to this location here where my thumb is. And then there was one more hex here and one Torx screw here. And then that basket just lifts off and away. Alright, put the fasteners back in where you can so you don't lose them. The rest of them keep together in a small baggie. So I'll have to do a little bit more research, but remember I talked about these duct tape here? I believe that's actually not a bad idea. I think these are actually factory ports, either for the radio, or it's possible this might be actually the plug-in port for the scanner or the reader for this bike. So I'm not sure if that's what, I'll do a little bit more research, but I'm pretty sure it might be scanner and radio. So they're just ports that are taped over just to prevent getting some moisture in there. I should also mention that below the cubby box is also the air breather for your air box, and it's picked up by the 2 locations that connect your cubby box as well. So when you remove those fasteners, this long tube is going to come off as well. This is affixed to actually one of the cables here just to keep it up on attached over here. So just remember to clip that in the cable. You can sort of see the cable hopefully there that clips to once that's reinstalled. Alright, I think the next step for me is to try to disconnect the gas tank and lift that away from the bike. So there are a couple of quick disconnects on the fuel lines. Hopefully those will come apart without breaking. I think it's probably a good idea at this point to also disconnect the battery, so I'm going to do that first before we move any further since I have access to the battery terminals here. So we'll disconnect the battery and we'll figure out how to remove the gas tank. As mentioned, I do have the manuals and I've yet to really reference them. I've been able to pretty much do what I need to do so far, but if I run into trouble, obviously I've got the manuals there for backup. Okay, so far I can only see one connection for the gas tank, and it's here, and I've just removed this hex-headed bolt, and we'll see if we can lift the tank up a little bit to access the quick disconnects on the fuel line a bit more, and we'll go from there. Okay, back on the right hand side of the bike, so we've got a quick disconnect electrical connector here that's attached to the bottom of the tank with a clip. Looks like we have some tank vent lines here that are zip tied to the frame, and there's a union here, so we're going to disconnect these. At this point, the quick disconnects are down in here, so we'll get to those. Apparently they are different sized fittings, or they're reverse fittings, so I can't screw it up as to how they go back, so it should be good there. So let's continue on, see if we can make some progress getting this tank off. It does look like it's only this one fastener, and it sits in a couple of rubber buffers, and the tank pulls backwards to be able to get it off. So it looks fairly straightforward as long as everything comes apart as it should. Alright, we've disconnected these two lines, and what I've done is I've mismatched the rubber connecting portion so I know which one goes where. Obviously the top one goes here and the bottom one goes here, back for reassembly, so those are detached, and we'll go after those quick disconnects now, and hopefully they quick disconnect. Alright, so far so good. Unbelievably, the quick disconnects actually disconnected. So let's give that another shot of lifting this tank off. Man, that fuel smells rancid. It's obviously been in here for quite a while. I don't think this bike was driven much in the last 3 years or so, and the fuel's quite old. Anyway, let's get this tank off. Alright guys, that was rather uneventful. There's actually a fair amount of gas in the tank, so it's quite heavy. I think what we'll do now is we'll just remove the battery just to get it out of the bike. Give us a bit more, actually no, I'm going to need the battery. Actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, change my mind. I'm going to take the battery out, I'm going to put it on a charger. We will need to use the battery eventually when we go to bleed our brake system and our servo, so we'll need battery power at that point. So let me take it out for now. We'll clean that area anyway, and then we'll actually have new battery cables for it if need be, if these cables fail inspection. And we'll remove that battery, stick it on a charger just to get it charging, a full charge, and then we'll put it back in when we need to. Okay, I'm just going to remove this other piece of ducting, the secondary piece of ducting to the airbox, and there's one more hex screw here, so we'll just undo that, and I believe that should release this piece of ductwork here into the airbox, and that will give us a little bit more access to the battery. So we'll just remove this. Let's see here, we can do this one-handed, and I might need to take the airbox lid off to be able to get that out, so we'll come back. So I've just removed the connector on the top of the airbox. There's a little pin that you pull out at the rear of it, so you can see it there. Just pull it out with a screwdriver. 2 Phillips screws here that I've removed from the rear of the rear of the airbox, and then there's a couple tabs on the front. Just lift up and pull back, and that shows you your air filter, and you should be able to remove this little tube now off the side. There we go. On to battery removal. Alright guys, just taking a quick look at the air filter before we go on to removing the battery, and it looks kind of obvious that this is an aftermarket filter. It does look kind of like a K&N filter to me. I can't see any markings on it, but that's kind of what it looks like, a reusable, washable filter. Now, I'm going to wait and see and reserve judgment when my stock air filter comes to see how much volume the stock air filter takes. I would think that it fills up this compartment entirely, or fairly close. This seems to be fairly small to me, and I'm not sure from a height perspective if that actually works to prevent air from just traveling right over the top of the filter and in through the bore. So we'll see what the stock height filter looks like, and we'll determine whether we want to go with this high flowing filter or whether we want to go with the stock filter. Alright, on to the battery removal, and simply just to I think it's just a pull down on this tab here, this rubber tab, to remove this clip or release this clip, and then the battery should be able to just slide out the side. So we'll do that now. Incidentally, here is the cable that was in the cubby box, and it just kind of tucked in beside the battery and goes to the front of the bike. So we're just going to remove that now and get it out of the way, and we'll figure out what that is actually used for at one point. Again, possibly for some heated gear. Alright, back to battery removal. Should be able to just slide that out, I think. And Bob's your uncle. There we go. Battery's out. Alright guys, so that now gives us good access to the ABS pump, which is here. So we've got a pretty good look at that. It looks in pretty good shape. Actually, the bike overall looks to be pretty clean. Seen a lot worse, that's for sure. So I think the only thing left to do for me right now is I'd kind of like to get maybe these lower fairing panels off to be able to get to the alternator cover and the V-belt a little bit easier. So I'm going to do a little reading to see what I need to remove in order to access the cover there easily enough. I do need to turn a bolt on the crank to actually be able to get to top dead center to adjust the valves, so that's why that cover needs to come off. Plus I want to inspect the belt as well. So let me see what's going to make that the easiest possibility. Alright guys, back at the front of the cylinder head, and there's these lower fairing pieces. As mentioned, I want to remove them to be able to get to the front of the alternator or the V-belt cover, crank pulley. So it's just basically 2 bolts and spacers to remove, and that fairing piece comes off, and all the bracketry for it. So fairly easy removal. That'll be nice to be able to clean that up, polish it up before we put it back on the bike. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see this or not, but here's the left-hand side fairing removal piece. So I've just loosened these bolts a little bit. The bottom one. Spacer. Okay, and just lift it away. Definitely gives you a lot nicer access to the front of the bike when you remove those panels. Here's the oil sight feed glass. I'm sure the oil doesn't look too bad, although it looks like it might be over full. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about that now. At least it doesn't look like it's weeping. Otherwise I'd have to replace that. So my understanding, these have been known to start weeping and then blow out. So then you need to do a replacement on that. So, alright, I think that's about as far as we're going to go on this bike until our parts arrive. Maybe we'll take off the front cover, but let me think about that for a little bit. And 4 hex screws later, the cover is off. So let me get down there and we'll have a quick look with a light, inspection light, and see what the belt looks like. And I think that will be it for part 1. I'm not going to go any further, like I said, until we receive our parts. Hopefully they'll come tomorrow, if they didn't come later today. Because I probably won't get any package delivery on the weekend, because it's coming through Canada Post, I believe, so they do not deliver here on Saturday and Sunday. So if the parts don't come tomorrow, this part's going to remain naked for at least the weekend. Alright, and one more shot and we'll call her a day. Alright guys, just having a quick inspection now that the cover's off. The belt looks actually good. It looks fairly new, and I don't see any issues with the belt. The tension seems good as well. There is the nut that we need to turn in order to turn the engine over to do the valves. So yeah, so that area looks good. Pretty clean, a little bit of dirt on the bottom, but not bad. So, alright guys, that's it for now. We'll get back out here once our parts arrive. Thanks for watching. Alright, one more video. I lied. Got the battery on trickle charge. And I thought I'd just give you one more quick look of the bike at the stage where we're at. Just a quick overview, quick walk around. Pretty good for a few hours work. Nothing too daunting so far. Everything seems to make sense. No problem with any of the fasteners, except for some of them that we're actually missing. And overall it looks pretty good. A little dirty, a little dusty, as to be expected. We'll clean that all up before we put it back together. Have it looking like a brand new bike. Alright, that's it for now. See you on the next video. Thanks for watching.